Go for launch. Booster, commence sim on count. Rocket flight. Controller, strap your reset voice. Alien on board power. I'll give you a warning before the ESC tracks. minus 16. Guidance internal. Five dozen feet. Max cube. $30,000 feet. Mach 1.
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. First step, status check. Astronaut Oliver.
Oliver, status check. Neutral, Oliver, status perfect. Empty.
Copy, astronaut Wally.
Wally. Neutral, Wally, empty.
Copy, astronaut Demo. Copy, astronaut Bezos. Copy.
Se você quer ter um resultado acima das médias...
Stand by drogues. Stand by drogues.
Alguém sabe o nome de... é pilotinho que eles falam? Para esse paraquedas...
The main's out, reefing and coming to full inflation.
It seemed to go about as well as it possibly could have gone.
Just got about a minute and a half.
You know what?
There you see the crew capsule descending back to Earth. There are multiple vehicles on the ground in a grid pattern waiting to zoom in as soon as touchdown happens here.
Emily, thank you. That capsule, Tom Keane, 800 feet away.
It's just amazing to see, and of course the debate of land versus sea 40 and 50, 60 years ago, and now routinely done on land. Let us listen in right now.
And it's touchdown. Capsule touchdown. Tom Keane, that looks successful to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I believe it is successful. Amazing to me, John, to see the speed of which they seem to be dropping, and yet a very gentle landing.
The hatch is due to open, Tom, I understand, in the next 10 minutes or so we might have to wait a little while to see who comes out of first. The picture's on your screen, though, for our audience worldwide. If you're listening on Bloomberg Radio, the booster successfully touching down. The capsule, so far at least from what we can see, successfully launching down. I believe you can hear from Jeff Bezos, so let's take a listen.
Copy, first step. You have a very happy Capcom here as well. Let's do a status check. Astronaut Oliver.
Control, astronaut Oliver, status correct.
Copy. Astronaut. Copy. Astronaut demo.
Astronaut demo, I am unbelievably good.
Copy.
Blue Control, Bezos, best day ever.
Copy, everyone. Go ahead and remain in your seats. Crew member 7 is on their way. Shortly, you will hear the capsule off-gassing.
Did anybody have to or altitude or altitude? I didn't. I had, my main mission was accomplished. I didn't kick anyone. That was only about 5 minutes. Yeah.
Tom Keane, that looks like a successful mission. The astronauts checked in, the capsule successfully returning to land. That hatch is due to open in 5 or so minutes' time.
The capsule landing and the triangle of the 3 parachutes laid out on the Texas desert, or the plains, I guess I would call it, in a light green scrub. We say good morning on Bloomberg Radio, on television. It's just extraordinary images of a return to space. Chad Anderson with us, and a perfect time to speak to him as Blue Origin is gathered in celebration here. I guess a flawless mission is our first take. What does that signal for Mr. Bezos, for Mr. Musk? What does that signal for Chad Anderson?
I mean, they've been flawless since the beginning. This is their 16th flight, and they've all been flawless. It's really great to see. We now officially have 2 suborbital vehicles online that are taking humans to space. They're going to start doing so regularly. We have SpaceX is taking NASA to the space station. They have private missions lined up. Later this year, and this is a new era in human spaceflight.
Why is NASA focused on the efforts of Mr. Musk and not on those of Mr. Bezos?
Well, there's been a lot of comparison between Virgin Galactic and Bezos and Blue Origin, actually, but the ambitions of Blue Origin are much more aligned with SpaceX. This is the first step in what their, much larger ambition.
What does Mr. Musk learn from what we've seen this morning?
Well, I think he's wished them well, and I'm sure that he's happy to see this success happen. It's happened. He's been a leader in a number of other categories, in Tesla as well, and he's happy to see other electric vehicles coming online. I imagine he's got a similar sentiment here. One company does not make a market. And so it's great to see the increased competition driving further innovation.
Chad, let's go to John Farrow as we see the SUV pull up to the capsule, John.
2 vehicles approaching the capsule, 1 individual running towards it, Tom, just waving at the astronauts inside. They're going to open up that hatch any moment from now, Tom. Any moment now, that hatch will be opened.
So many of the memories here, folks, and it's not only Alan Shepard being yanked out of the ocean and Gus Grissom with a capsule going down into the ocean, but it's always an important mission. Now, I would assume, John, that the weightlessness issue here of the shuttle and the space station is not an issue. When you're up for 11 minutes, I mean, what can happen?
Tom, it certainly goes quickly, that's for sure. I can see Jeff Bezos inside reaching for his cowboy hat, Tom. I think that's going on right now as they go to open up that capsule. We were taking bets on who would exit first. Tom, who went in first? I think Jeff Bezos went in first, so I'm pretty sure that Mr. Bezos is going to be first out.
Did they come out and say, I'm going to Disneyland? I mean, is that part of the...
I don't think this is the Super Bowl, Tom. Tom, this is not the Super Bowl. Or the way some people have delivered the coverage of this, you'd expect it to be just as large. It's the what next of this, Tom. It's the what next of this. This was the first time for this company. What next?
Craig, let's go. Chad, let's go. Chad, let's go to you quickly here. What is the next here that you observe?
I mean, there's going to be more of these flights. They've got more lined up, and interestingly, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see where they price this thing, how many people are going. We know that 7,500 people put in bids in this auction, paying up to $28 million, and there was thousands of people who paid, any variation. And so it'll be interesting to see where they end up, how Virgin responds, and where Blue Origin goes next.
John, let's describe the scene for radio here. We've got a mic up like they use for us on Bloomberg Surveillance to be sure they get it with tone, but certainly a different scene than anything I've seen from NASA before, John.
I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 individuals working on opening up that capsule, Tom. It's going to take a couple of moments, I think. You can just about see Jeff Bezos inside the capsule, waving around and giving the thumbs up as we wait for that to open up. I want to bring in our colleague, Emily Chang, as we await this moment. Emily, your thoughts on what's developed in the past hour?
John, Tom, I mean, we all have covered a lot of stories in our lives. Some of them are more memorable than others. I have to say, this is one for the history books. This is, it's hard not to get caught up in the energy and the history of this moment. I mean, it's one small step for Jeff Bezos, perhaps one giant leap for space tourism and space exploration. And the vision that Bezos has articulated goes so far beyond just people having a joyride in space. He has talked about building this road to space, the infrastructure that other entrepreneurs can build on. He's talked about the fact that when he started Amazon, he didn't have to start new credit card systems. All of that was in place. We had a mail service that could deliver packages to you. Space, however, is much more undiscovered. There is no infrastructure. He wants to build that infrastructure so space entrepreneurs of the future can build a whole new generation of Amazons out there. And so it'll be interesting to see what he has to say as he steps off this flight and whether or not the experience has changed him or this vision at all. But obviously this is a suborbital flight. Blue Origin working on orbital flights with the New Glenn. That will be their next big project. We spoke to a lead designer who said they're on track for that to be done before the end of next year. So who knows? Jeff Bezos could be up there again on an orbital flight.
I believe that hatch door is about to open any moment now to see who comes out of that capsule first. The astronauts inside are standing up. They're standing up, Tom, as we await that door to open, perhaps in the next couple of seconds.
They're going to descend down, John, and, it's going to be a great moment. The stairs, John, frankly, look like the ones we have for the Gulfstream.
The hatch door has opened to the capsule, Tom. Exiting first is Jeff Bezos, donning that cowboy hat that he's been wearing over the last week or so, Tom. After him, the first teenager, the first human flight, the youngest ever astronaut there, Tom. And there you go. Tom, we keep talking about this moment. For the 82-year-old aviation icon, just phenomenal. And his brother, the last out of the capsule.
Gather around, I would say 40 or 50 people in the Texas desert. For those of you on Bloomberg Radio, it's being filmed. It will be part of their propaganda, if you will, of the further flights to be had. But what absolutely stuns me, John, is this truly appears to be absolute flawless execution.
Again, here a successful launch and landing of the New Shepard rocket and crew capsule with our first human flight crew there. Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Oliver Damon, and Wally Funk. And their families there giving big hugs all around. What a moment, so much emotion from all of them. The elation. Did you see Wally? Did you see Wally when she came out? This. I told you she was probably going to do a summer, cartwheel as she came out of that capsule. What an incredible, incredible day.
A successful mission for an S-16 for Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Oliver Damon, and for Wally Funk. Emily Chang, to bring you back into the conversation, we keep talking about the what next of it. What have we achieved today that was not achieved 2 weekends ago?
John, I have to say, from everything that I could tell, this was an extremely successful mission. This was an opportunity for Jeff Bezos to demonstrate Blue Origin's technology to the world. This is after a 21-year journey. Delays, design changes, losing out on contracts, government contracts, important government contracts to SpaceX. And up to this point, SpaceX has very much been seen as the leader in this industry. SpaceX has orbital rockets and is already making trips to the International Space Station and taking astronauts there. This validates that Blue Origin has the capability, and you wonder, you have to assume certainly that the folks at NASA are watching, and you wonder if this changes something for NASA as well.
We welcome you all to our coverage with the markets opening. John, we have to say within the markets, and I want to go to Tim Stanovic here, but John, we have to say that as we have had this launch, we've had an adjustment in the 10-year yield to a lower yield. That is worth noting as we enter a Tuesday trading day.
Your 10-year yield right now, 113 on 10s, yields in about 5-6 basis points. For the broader market, your equity market around the opening bell, positive just 0.15% on the open, up 6 points. It's worth highlighting, Tom, that for many, many people, they do not like what they hear and what they see around this story this morning. As Emily points out, today that was a successful mission for this company. There are many people, though, that would like to see Jeff Bezos do a whole lot more on planet Earth than what he's just done in the last 1 hour.
Yeah, and one of the stark things here, folks, is almost like an athletic locker room. They're breaking out the champagne. For those of you on Bloomberg Radio, we can always describe a champagne moment. Tim Stanovic, that is one of the stark differences here between private enterprise. You wouldn't see that with a government NASA effort as well. I mean, we're really seeing a private enterprise. Tim Stanovic, where does it go from here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It goes a lot of different places. For Blue Origin, they have 2 more of these flights later this year. They're shooting for late September, early October. Unclear, as we heard earlier, how much those are going to cost. The company has much, much bigger ambitions, though, beyond space tourism. Jeff Bezos has talked about his vision for the future. He's said in the past that if we can get 1 trillion people, that's right, 1 trillion people into the solar system, that means we have 1,000 Einsteins and 1,000 Mozarts. The idea is that the Earth cannot sustain us, and in order for materials, in order for energy, we have to explore further. You know, he was asked earlier this week about the idea that why focus on space when we have so many problems here at home? And his answer was, well, first of all, I think we can do both at the same time. And indeed, in recent years, he has increased his investments with his own philanthropy, but he is behind many other people of immense wealth. The other element of that is that he said it's always important for us to be exploring. It's always important for us to be looking ahead. And he says we can do both of those things at the same time.
I think it's right to sit on this conversation. Tom, you, like me, Emily, I'm sure as well, and Tim too. Over the last hour, we've built up to this moment this morning. For Blue Origin, a momentous occasion, truly historic. But for many people, the frustration, the amount of messages that I've received in the last 60 minutes criticizing not just this coverage, but the event itself. Emily Chang, just to go over the mission statement of Blue Origin that you and I discussed a little bit earlier this morning, I think it's worth sharing a couple of lines with our audience. Blue Origin believes that in order to preserve Earth, our home, for our grandchildren's grandchildren, we must go to space to tap its unlimited resources and energy. For Jeff Bezos and others, Emily, there is no distinction between the work that needs to be done on Earth and the work that he thinks needs to be done in space.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, part of the opportunity here is for them to explain that vision. This has been a very secretive company for 21 years. Until today, only one journalist had ever visited Blue Origin headquarters. Today, they're open to the national press. We are all here watching this moment and wanting Jeff Bezos to articulate what that vision is. Why is he spending so much of his money exploring space for this 11-minute trip up and down? How does that help us on Earth? And what he has said is, I want to continue living on Earth. This is the best planet. We love it here, but we need to protect it. We're going to run out of energy. We need to go to space in order to mine that energy from the sun, from the moon. We don't need to go to Mars. Mars is inhospitable. We will not enjoy it there. We don't want to live on the moon either. We want to live on these space colonies, as he's described it, where it's like Maui every day, and you can go back and forth to Earth whenever you want. This is hundreds of years out, but he imagines big industry in space, residential and light industry here on Earth, and Blue Origin, he wants to be a huge part of the infrastructure in building out that space economy.
The eyes of the world on the desert land just outside of Van Horn, West Texas. Right now, 8:37 local time, 9:37 in New York, Tom. So allow me to check in on the markets just briefly. 7 minutes into the session. It has been a huge 24 hours for this market. Equities up by 1/3 of 1%. With your bounce back, this is what it looks like as follows. On the S&P 500, advancing just a little bit, 12, 13 points higher. But once again, Tom, it's the bond market that gets your attention. And maybe the bond market pales in comparison to what we've seen in the last hour or so. But your 10-year right now, just south of 114, Tom, down 5 basis points on the day.
I'm going to brag for the 108th mayor of New York and for Thomas Secunda when they did their innovation of inventing the Bloomberg terminal, John. It was absolutely original that you could go from what was called a Monroe trader to convexity and duration math, and then to immediate log analysis of charts. I can tell you, John, it was just like what you're watching with Mr. Bezos on the Texas desert. The 10-year yield right now, John, is a textbook chart of lower highs on yield. It has been 1, 2, 3, and on back over the last 15 days or so. It is stunning to see price up and yield down to a 1.1392. John, we have to begin to be on the 0.99 watch.
Unbelievable. For our audience worldwide on Bloomberg TV and radio, and of course for our audience on Bloomberg Quick Take, the coverage continues with Tom Keene, myself, Jonathan Ferro, alongside our good friends and colleagues Emily Chang and Tim Stenovic. We'll continue to cover the markets, but also this event. Tom, I talked about the late 90s and Amazon and the kind of people that threw mud at that company and its valuation. Why would this company be valued what it's valued when it's just an online bookseller without the vision of what this could become? And I'm conscious of that particular moment in the late 90s and conditioned by it because I do not want that clip to play in 20 years' time of me repeating that same error. Throwing mud at a mission that's taken place in the last hour without any imagination on what this momentum can develop, what this moment can develop into. Yes, Amazon had a crazy valuation, but it became something so much bigger than just an online bookseller. And you wonder if Jeff Bezos can repeat the act, Tom, with Blue Origin.
Well, it's a repeat the act, but it's a strategic plan to move forward. And again, they have that plan in Shepard, a single-engine rocket, which will be put on top of a larger rocket, and that will be called Glenn. Chad Anderson knows this with Space Capital and continues with his patient this morning at this historic moment. What's after Glenn? Does Jeff Bezos want to go to the moon?
He does. He's working with a consortium of he's partnered up with a few of the incumbents, and was competing for a contract that he lost out on to Musk and SpaceX, and they've fought against that, and it looks like they're going to press ahead. SpaceX was the only one that put in a bid that was affordable.
Frame this, and you're very good at this. Frame for this now: China doing a Matt Damon equivalency on Mars. We're out on Mars with a helicopter that goes around. There's government interest. There's international interest. There's private billionaire interest as well. How do they dovetail together in 2031?
Well, this is how so many new markets and nascent markets develop. The government is an early investor in the technology risk and in the R&D, and that's what we've seen over the last 50 or 60 years in space. And then with the retirement of the space shuttle, we were basically saying this has become routine, getting to orbit, and it's become too expensive. And in order to keep doing this, we need to work with commercial partners. And that's what, SpaceX 10 years ago was able to break through kind of the deadlock of the defense contractors who kind of had a tight grip on this market. And they've lowered the prices. I mean, they are allowing NASA to do more with their limited budget, resupplying the space station, taking astronauts to the space station, maintaining station, and also going out to deeper space missions and exploring the solar system.